The energy stored for millions of years in oil has now polluted the planet, and that energy is being expressed in climate change. And if we connect all the dots, the picture is clear. What we call home is fast approaching a breaking point. And the real cost of our reckless way of living will be paid for by future generations. Instead of an American dream, they will be living an American nightmare. All of these crises are developing in such a way that when today's children are in the middle of their lives, the full fury of these crises will start to be felt. Based on current trends, here are just a few snapshots of what this future will look like. By 2020, 1/4 of the world's mammals will be extinct. By 2020, less rainfall will reduce agricultural yields by up to 50% in some parts of the world. By 2020, demand for oil will exceed supply, causing oil shortages and large spikes in prices. By 2030, virtually every country will face shortages of fresh water. By 2030, 60% of all coral reefs will be gone. By 2030, Arctic summers will be ice-free. By 2030, ice sheets in Greenland will begin rapidly melting and sea levels will rise. By 2030, many areas of the world will experience continuous drought. By 2030, oil shortages become more severe, sending industrial economies into permanent recession. By 2030, suburbs throughout the world begin collapsing due to the increased cost of transportation, which causes mass migrations into cities. By 2030, a farming region in China's north that produces food for 400 million will run out of water due to the depletion of aquifers. By 2040, the Ogallala Aquifer will be dry, and Dust Bowl conditions will become permanent in the Midwest. Similar results will occur throughout the rest of the world as aquifers dry up. By 2040, honeybee populations will cease to exist. By 2040, a widespread disaster will happen involving genetic engineering, which will threaten food supplies. By 2040, oil shortages become permanent, sending industrial economies into depression. By 2040, resource wars over oil, water, and food will break out throughout the world. By 2040, social unrest and rioting due to resource shortages affect almost every country. Many governments collapse under the pressure. By 2050, the world population will be over 9 billion people. By 2050, more than 2 billion people won't have access to clean water. By 2050, virtually all tropical rainforests will be gone. By 2050, almost all coral reefs will be gone. By 2050, phytoplankton, the base of all marine life, will be greatly reduced due to warmer oceans. By 2050, there will be a global collapse of all currently exploited fish. By 2050, polar bears will mostly be found in zoos. By 2050, permanent drought conditions will be experienced in many areas of the world. By 2050, over 2 billion people will be subject to severe flooding. By 2050, most coastal cities will be under severe attack from rising sea levels. By 2050, rising sea levels will devour 17% of Bangladesh's total landmass, leaving at least 20 million people homeless. By 2050, there will be over 200 million climate change refugees throughout the world. By 2050, increases in epidemics and plagues due to changes in ecosystems will kill millions of people. By 2070, the world's oil supply will be gone. By 2080, severe water shortages threaten half the world's population. By 2080, sea levels around New York City will rise by more than 3 feet. By 2100, glaciers that provide fresh water for more than 1 billion people will be gone. By 2100, surface permafrost could completely disappear, releasing massive amounts of methane gas into the atmosphere, further accelerating global warming. By 2100, completely new climate zones appear on almost half of the world's land surface, radically transforming the planet.
Here we are in October 2013, early October, and within the last 2 weeks, John Davies, writing for the Arctic Methane Emergency Group, reports that we will lose habitat for most humans on Earth by 2040. Also within the last week, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change's 5th assessment came out, in which the IPCC recommends geoengineering because otherwise we've triggered runaway greenhouse. So it appears that we have in fact triggered runaway greenhouse event. Neither of those assessments take into account the 25 self-reinforcing feedback loops we've triggered on the climate front. 23 of those appear to be irreversible at temporal spans relevant to humanity. We triggered one of those in 2010 when it was reported in Science in March that methane was leaking out of the Arctic Ocean. We triggered 4 more as reported in the refereed journal literature in 2011. We triggered 6 more in 2012 and a full dozen so far in 2013. Tack on 1 each in 2012 and 2013 reversible feedback loops. The first of those in August 2012 when the Obama administration approved drilling for gas and oil in the Arctic. And then earlier this year when we have supertankers pushing through the slushy Arctic to save a few dollars in shipping routes through the vaunted Northwest Passage. At this point it seems that civilization, that industrial civilization, is a trap. Other civilizations have been able to collapse and we've been able to walk away from that. And in a few cases, at least, the survivors have returned to a hunter-gatherer existence. However, we can't do that now because we have these many nuclear power plants throughout the world. Civilization collapses now in the less than 20 years or so it takes to decommission and power those power plants. We've triggered runaway ionizing radiation. If we don't stop civilization, we've triggered runaway greenhouse. In fact, we've already triggered runaway greenhouse. Either way, we're headed for near-term human extinction. How to live with this information, how to process this information, how to proceed in light of this information. Well, as Mike Tyson pointed out, the boxer, not the philosopher, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. We've been punched in the face now. We have a limited time on this planet, and in fact, we've always had a limited time on this planet. Let's act like that. Let's act as if we're in hospice, as if everybody is in hospice, as if the entire living planet is in hospice. And when I see how people act when they're in hospice, when they've been given weeks or months to end, I never see people acting as if they need the last dime, as if they need to make a little bit more money as the world burns. What I see instead is people pursuing a life of excellence, pursuing what they love, acting with compassion and courage and creativity, and giving things away, acting as if we live in a gift economy. Let's do that. Let's do all of that. Pursuing a life of excellence, pursuing what we love, acting as if we're in hospice, acting as if we're decent human beings that we're capable of acting. Let's pursue what we love. Let's act as if our insignificant lives matter to those around us. And I'm not suggesting we abandon action, that we just roll over and die. What I'm suggesting in addition to all that is that action is the antidote to despair, as Edward Abbey pointed out many years ago. So let's act.